Hey, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
I'm Brenda J.
And I'm Karen Wonder.
And we are HangingOnToHope.org.
This podcast is intended as educational and is not psychological or medical advice. Always consult a professional when needed, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the instruction, information, or advice given.
Welcome to the Hanging On to Hope podcast. This is Brenda J. Today we're so excited to have Deanne Welsh with us. Deanne is an author, writing coach, spiritual director, and founder of Unstoppable Writers Community. She helps writers move past fear and insecurity so they can bring their stories to life, whether it's a memoir, a book, or simply writing for healing. She leads the Unstoppable Writers Collective membership and Momentum Mastermind, a weekly group for writers who want consistent support to move their writing projects forward. She also hosts creative workshops that blend faith, creativity, and courage. Deanne's the author of When God Calls a Writer, Moving Past Insecurity to Write with Confidence, and When God Equips a Writer, Moving Past Doubt to Embrace Your Writing Destiny. Recently, she shared in her newsletter how she's been unpacking boxes after a move, and how that's been a lot like writing, one box at a time, one page at a time. We love that reminder. So Deanne, welcome to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Brenda and Karen. I'm really honored to be here. I know a lot of your listeners have walked through really hard things, and so it just feels sacred to be able to talk about writing and healing on this podcast in this space that you've created. I love reminding people that you don't have to have it all figured out to start writing. You really just need the courage to show up with God, one word at a time.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah. Continuing with part 2. So we love how you talk about showing up and giving yourself grace. How do you help writers balance discipline with rest, especially when life feels chaotic?
If we have discipline without grace, it just turns into shame. And shame not only shuts us down creatively, but it just makes us want to give up. And so with writers, I always want to start with naming the season they're in. I know I talked about this earlier, but if your pace of life, if your season is very full, like your pace is going to be very different than someone who has, let's say, is retired and has like 6 hours a day to work on their book. And being honest about our season, honest about our capability. I love working with neurodivergent writers, and sometimes if there's ADHD or other things, like that comes with its own challenges, and you can't expect the same pace, again, as someone who's retired with 6 hours to focus. And so having grace with yourself, I think my goal as a writing coach and spiritual director is to help you become a really good friend to yourself. And that also ties into like really believing that you're God's beloved and that you're his child. And I love remembering that we're God's children, because I have a son and he doesn't know everything. He has tantrums. He, gets things wrong. And I think remembering that we're God's children helps us have compassion when we make mistakes, when we maybe waste our time when we could have been writing, and just to have so much more grace in our season. And I also have a membership, the Unstoppable Writers Collective, and every single Monday we have a thread in our Facebook group to list our goals. But right beside it every week, I tell people, like, how are you going to rest? How are you going to do self-care this week? Whether it's moving your body, taking a bath, we get specific because that's so easy to neglect.
Yeah.
And then every Friday, I do a live video answering questions. And then every Friday at the beginning, I say, okay, what are you celebrating this week? Because our culture is also not good at celebrating. We do something and instantly we're like, what's next?
Yeah.
But actually sitting with, I wrote an email this week, or I sold one book. Sitting with those celebrations is going to give your brain more dopamine so that you're more motivated to move forward, versus the shame is just going to shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good.
Anyone that's read or listened to Brene Brown knows all about shame. Definitely doesn't help things much. And what about perfectionism? That's another thing a lot of us struggle with. I know so many people feel like their story isn't good enough. How do you help them move past that fear?
Yeah, so perfectionism is definitely flows from fear and anxiety and wanting to be good enough or like prove yourself. And so when writers say my story isn't good enough, or I don't know if I can be a writer, I remind them God is not asking you to write a perfect book. He is inviting you to write with him, one page at a time.
Mm.
And something I've noticed in my own books that I've published is there's a quote, the one spoken to is the one spoken through. And sometimes the greatest work that I see is how God heals and shapes me through the writing of the book, even more than who it touches. Like if it sells a lot of copy, touches a bunch of people, yay. But God is doing a work in me through my writing. And remembering that helps me also just distinguish between the drafting and the editing stage. So when you're drafting and it's messy and it's that first rough draft, it's going to be crap. It's just not going to be great. And I love the image. I tell this to people, like, when you're drafting, you are just gathering clay and like slapping it on the wheel where you form it. Just get all the clay you can. You can shape it later. You can make it look pretty. You can put it in the fire, cut off parts, but you just need clay this first draft. And so don't overthink it. And then again, I love talking about this, but you don't have to be the best writer, the best marketer. You don't have to even have the best book in the world. It's about being faithful and trusting the process. And no one else can tell your story the way you would. Even if a topic has been written about by thousands of people, if you are having that desire, there's something in that journey for you, and there's people who need it from you because you will use different language, different illustrations, even like the title you pick. That may be for someone specifically that all those other writers can't even touch. I think especially for those who have messages or stories that come from a wound or trauma, even more so. There are people who need you talking about your experience, and it will unlock and heal things they didn't even know.
Yeah, that's so good. We try to do a lot of interviews with survivors too, and they tell their stories. So it is very, very healing for the person telling their story and for the person listening. But I do love how each person, it's just like with the Bible, you can read it and somebody gets something different from the same sentence. So I love how you say that book could speak to someone, that same topic, that a different book didn't speak to them, but your book will. So that's pretty neat.
I'm sure. Are you familiar with Dan Allender?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've got several of his books, but he's got a book. I can't remember what it's called. It's one of his older books, but I think it's something about writing your story. And I started it, but I never finished it. It's one of those things I want to finish someday too, because I love his whole thing about seeing your stories helps other people heal too. That's a lot of what he talks about. Oh yeah, I've kept journals for years. I have so many journals. I don't know what to do with them. I mean, now I had them all in like this cute little thing, but now like they've overflowed that. I'm like, what do I do with all these journals? Because I still write. So you just keep going and going. And I've always dreamed of turning them into a book, but it does feel overwhelming. So this is very, very inspirational. So what would you suggest that I even start with?
So I have a fun story about my journals, but I'll share that later. If you're not sure where to start with your journals, the first thing that's going to help you is picking a focus, not your whole life. Only the people who really love us are going to want to hear the whole life.
Yeah.
Most people, it's too much. I have a first date funny story about that, but too much, your whole life. So you really want to pick one focus, whether it's a season or a theme that keeps tugging at you. For example, my healing journey after cancer, or learning to trust God in grief. And when you have that question, it acts as your filter. So now you can decide, what is my book about, and what is going to be in my book, and what is not going to be in my book. Because your whole life, and I feel this overwhelmed sometimes. Every day I have like 5 ideas that I could put into a blog post or an email. And there's no way my time can keep up with that, or my capability. So it's trusting that the one thing you pick is enough for now.
Yeah.
And I often imagine like God's hand and all those other pretty things that I wish I had time for, like putting them in his hand and like,
Yeah.
nope, this is my focus right now. This book, this topic, this theme. And so once you have your focus, number 2, you'll go back through your journals. And again, I would pick a season. If you have journals for 30 years, don't let going through all of them be an excuse in procrastination.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't go from birth until now. And that's why you're like, I saw her how many journals she has.
Yes,
I said I'm not helping you when I get Deanne on the podcast. That's what I said. So here you are.
So number 2, go through a set of journals. Like set your container. Don't overwhelm where it's going to take 5 years. Set a reasonable container of journals. And then you go through and you mark anything that matches your focus. So sticky notes, highlighter, simple code in the margins so they stand out. And then once you've done that, you'll choose just 10 to 15 of those moments and rewrite them as short scenes in a fresh document. So one little story at a time. And again, if your brain tends towards overwhelm, which mine often does, you can even tell yourself, you're not writing a book.
Yeah.
You're just gathering stories, just a few stories. And then I love curiosity. You can even I'm gathering stories and we'll just see where this goes. And that kind of takes the pressure off. The funny story about my journals is I have a lot of journaled since I was 13, and we moved a lot, me and my husband, the last few years. So I decided, you know what? I don't want to keep this last move we did. I don't want to keep lugging like all these journals everywhere. It was so many boxes, and we have friends helping that I just felt like, oh my gosh, people are like literally having to lift all these journals. So one Christmas break, what I did is I did it the hard way, which is where I just transcribed the things I wanted to keep. And then I actually ended up burning the journals in kind of a release exercise. Yeah. But now with ChatGPT, I can literally go through a journal and take pictures of the pages I want to keep. And then I just ask ChatGPT to transcribe it. And then it'll transcribe it for me. And I use Evernote, which is like a digital filing system. And so then I just copied into ChatGPT, and now I have it. It's searchable, but it's also not having to be carried from the house.
That's a great idea.
But some people love their journals. So that's really a personal choice. Like keep them if you want them. For me, I just knew I don't want to reread these all indefinitely, and I don't necessarily want my kid to read them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I got rid of the first 10 years or 5 years or something in my journal because I'm like, okay, I was going through a lot then. I'm like, I don't want anyone to ever read these journals. So I did that too. I think I took them someplace and had them shredded or something, but I went through them first.
Did you know we were setting you up on this podcast? She's been talking from the first, we have 230 podcasts. From the very beginning, all the time, she says, I really want to write a book off my journals. So I'm like, oh, I got to add this part in here.
Yeah, I was telling my husband that. He's like, when do you have time to do that? That's the thing. I don't have time right now because it's too much craziness. But I like these ideas. These are really great ideas that make it not feel, because I do already have an idea of what I want, like some of the things you were saying. So that makes it really helpful.
Yeah, she could almost like skim through them, take a photo of it, upload that into chat, and it'll write it on a piece of paper for you. So it's written out as part of your book if that's one of the stories you want. And then to take like 5 per journal.
Yeah, like 10 to 15 total.
Oh, 10 to 15.
Yeah.
Depending how long you want your book to be.
Yeah. Yeah, those are great ideas.
Yeah, because
getting me motivated.
I upload everything to ChatGPT. So photos, anything I need to compare. So then it would write it for you and it's less work.
Yeah, I haven't messed around with ChatGPT very much.
All right. So I've been thinking about documenting my life story, not necessarily for publishing, but just for my own healing, maybe for my family. How do you guide someone who's writing for personal wholeness rather than an audience? And you talked a little bit about this, but this is for me.
So I think it helps to think about moments, not the manuscript. Because again, the book idea, the manuscript, that can feel overwhelming. But just start with noticing the stories that keep coming back to you, the stories maybe that you even end up telling quite a bit. And so you're repeating them many times. Like you could write it down. And the first thing would be just to create a simple story list, or like documenting your life for family, legacy, book. what stories would you want to include? And one note on that, I actually sat next to a lady on an airplane who was wanting to document stories for her grandchildren and family. And she was struggling with which stories to include because she didn't want to include the hard stories. She wanted it to be more like about faith in God and upbeat. And I actually really told her, you need to include the hard stories. Nobody wants a perfect person.
Yeah.
And your hard stories have the most power to speak to people and to make them feel not alone and like they can get through hard things.
Yeah.
You got to be relatable.
Yes. And especially if it's your legacy for your family, like that's going to be even more meaningful in some ways than the polished story of your life.
Well, if I wrote down just the God parts and the good parts, my kids would know I was lying because they went through it with me and they're still healing from it.
Sugar coated.
Yeah. They'd be like, "Mom, this is not what happened." So I do get it. Yeah. And the Bible talks about that too, after you suffered for a little while. So God always does come through, and sometimes we have to wait, and he's teaching us patience, but he does come through.
Yeah.
And so it'd be nice to, tell those stories, but look, I'm okay. I made it through.
Yeah. Yeah. You overcame it.
Yeah. That's such an important message. So you're thinking about moments, not the manuscript. And then again, a gentle rhythm as you're writing those. So again, one story a week or maybe even a month. If it's not on your calendar, you're not going to do it. So if writing the legacy book is important, have like a little date. And you can even do it with a friend who's wanting to write a book, like Brenda and Karen together.
Hint, hint.
I'll be like, Karen, it's on the calendar.
Yeah. And then just keep those stories together so that when you're ready to put them into that project, the book, then you can.
It's all there.
That's good.
Yeah. So you often encourage writers to invite God into the process. Can you share a time when you felt God speaking through your writing or through someone you coached?
My book, When God Calls a Writer, is probably the clearest example because the book began in my journal, wrestling and asking, am I qualified? What does it mean to be a writer with God? I didn't write the book because I had it figured out. It was a series of honest conversations with God about my insecurity, calling, and what it means to be faithful. And when I was done the book, I honestly published it on a whim, thinking, this might help a few people. And now that book has over 200 reviews. And I've heard from so many writers. I did actually put my email in the book. And so writers have emailed me and just said how much that book helped them and really gave them permission to write with God and to listen. And so that just, when I think about that book, it's such an honor that God used that kind of private conversation to encourage so many other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And was that one of your first books or?
That was my, I think, second book. Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Well, what would you say to someone who feels disqualified, like their story doesn't matter or they've missed their chance?
First, I would say if you feel disqualified, you are not alone. I went to a workshop of a best-selling author, and he said that before he starts every single book, he wonders why he's even writing and if he can do it. So almost every writer I work with, myself included, has that feeling of discouragement and doubt. But don't listen to it. And it's never too late to begin again. I know I kind of mentioned this earlier, but sometimes the very thing that you think disqualifies you is actually why you are the most qualified to write the story, the most relatable, the most raw even. Right now we're living in an age of AI and polished images and words. And so people are really starving for something real. They don't need perfect, untouchable experts. They want people that they can relate to, who've lived what they're writing about and have the scars to prove it. So your story matters not in spite of what you've walked through, but often because of what you've walked through. And when you show up to the page and then eventually publish with God, you become living proof to other people that they are not alone.
That is really good.
Yeah, that is.
We do live in a world that's too polished. I'm just going to write the most real raw.
Yeah.
When I do it, when I get around to it.
Yeah. I remember when me and a friend we were talking about doing a blog or something like that. We were saying that it's like, if we were to do it, it's like we wanted a blog that was not perfect looking because, you'd see certain things and it did feel like this feels like, yeah, it's intimidating.
And that's kind of like the story of our nonprofit and social media page. It's very imperfect. It is very real and raw.
We'd love to hear a story of transformation. Maybe someone in your community who found healing or breakthrough through writing.
One lady in my community hired me to help her write and self-publish her very first book. And she's a speaker. And so she literally came into the process saying, I'm not a writer, I just talk. And I've been working with her for 3 months. And it's been incredible to just see that belief about who she is and what she can and cannot do shift as she's shown up every week, outlining, drafting, wrestling the words on the page. And she did start with like speak to text, but then once they're down, you still have to shape the clay. Her confidence and her clarity have grown so much. And in the last month, she started saying things like, as a writer, and every time she does, I just have to laugh because it's completely shifted how she sees herself. And not just for this one book, but she has more books in her. Like I'm very confident and she's now seeing that vision. And so in this writing process, she's not just producing a book. She's healing and growing and seeing more opportunities than she previously did. And her story is very raw. So as she is telling the truth on the page, connecting the dots in her story, and she's shaped it for the people that she's serving, you can feel her just feeling more empowered in her life and over her story. And I really feel so honored every time I'm invited into that sacred space of someone writing a book because it's vulnerable. And sometimes when we speak, it's like we say it and then our words are floating through the air and they're gone. But when you write it down, it can feel more vulnerable because it's concrete. Once it's there, it's there. Once you get published, people will have copies that you can't get back and edit. And so I really feel honored that people let me into that process and not just see books be born, but seeing people step into who God says they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that example, you talked about someone that was a speaker, but then became a writer. So if you're a writer, do you have to be a speaker?
Absolutely not.
That's good to
know. There's
Yay.
Even in your social media marketing, I think currently in our marketing world, and I worked at a marketing agency as their managing editor for 5 years. In marketing, if you are willing to be on video and you're willing to have your face out there, it's going to be easier to build a brand in a business because as humans, even little babies, they're drawn to faces. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to build one without it. And so there are writers who are very far on the introvert scale and they don't want to be on video. They don't want to show their faces. And there's other ways to market yourself through email newsletters, through B-roll of like scenery or birds. So there's many ways to put yourself out there.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Well, if someone listening today is afraid to begin, what encouragement would you want to leave with them?
If you are listening and you feel afraid to begin, I just want you to know you're not behind and you're not doing it wrong. There really is no right way to start, especially if you have walked through trauma or deep pain. Your story and you matter to God exactly as it is right now. So again, instead of thinking I have to write my whole story, think about what's one moment or story that I could write today. And maybe it's a page, maybe it's a sentence. Start small. I often talk about minimum viable goals, and that's basically breaking your goal down as small as you can and then cutting it in half again. Because the smaller it is, the more likely we are to do it. And then that just builds the dopamine in our brain and we're more likely to take the next small step.
So it's about dopamine in the brain.
Helping your brain feel like
I
it's
get that
moving
part,
forward.
from the science part. I'm like, okay, now I get how the writers stay motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you
it's
hear all
being
these
realistic.
stories about like, oh, I wrote that book in 6 weeks or whatever. And you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
So their brain must have turned on and boom, or maybe Holy Spirit inspired. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's some books come quickly and then other books take 7 years.
Yeah.
So there's not a cookie cutter. And I think when we compare, that's where we start feeling behind and I'm doing it wrong. And so it really is having your blinders on and just staying focused on your small next step.
Yeah, that's good.
No.
Yeah. And setting realistic goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how can our listeners connect with you to join if they want to join Unstoppable Writers, your workshops, or the Momentum Mastermind?
So probably the best place would be to visit my website, which is deannewelsh.com. I have all of those things listed there and explained there. And then if you are on Facebook, I also have a free Facebook group called Unstoppable Writers. And so I will post updates to workshops and sometimes do live videos in there. And those are the website and the free group are the best places to reach me.
I'll definitely be following you there.
I signed up when I was doing your research. I'm on your email list. So I know your house flooded because I got all the secret info from your email. Not that that's funny. But
I've been through that twice.
But we're laughing now because it's over, right? Like you're past that point of it's been about 2 weeks, maybe, right? 10 days. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot.
We love how you remind us that God can use our words to heal others, but he often starts by healing us first. So we were going to end by doing this rapid fire round, Writer's Corner. Cool. Never did this before. So I think we're going to, Karen, go ahead. It looks like you're starting. You ready, Deanne?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Woo. All right.
Okay, Deanne, before we let you go, we love to end with a quick Writer's Corner round. Just short answers. First thing that comes to mind. Number 1, morning or evening writer?
Definitely morning.
Number 2, coffee, tea, or prayer walk?
Prayer walks in nature and coffee while I'm journaling.
Number 3, a book that changed your life?
It's called A Praying Life by Paul E. Miller, and it changed how I talk to God.
Interesting. One word that describes your writing process?
Bursts.
Finish this sentence. Healing through writing is?
Letting God sit with you inside your story.
Favorite scripture or quote about creativity?
Genesis 1 verse 1, in the beginning, God created. I love that the very first thing we learn about God is that he creates. And so when we write, we get to create with him.
I love that. Number 7, lastly, share one small action our listeners can take today to move forward as a writer.
Set a timer for 5 minutes and free write. Just you and God, no editing, pressure, or audience. You will be amazed at what God can do with a small beginning.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow.
Glad we have this on something I can listen to over and over again now.
We're so cool. We had this cool little thing at the end that I didn't even, did you? See, this is the only podcast that I ever wrote that I had to send to the writer to fix. It's like, I was so like embarrassed. I'm like, can you fix this and rewrite this for us? And so she sent it back last night. So, but of course she's a writer, so we're going to do that. So thank you very much for doing that. This is a really cool podcast.
Yeah, it is.
So thank you so much for joining us. This conversation's been such a reminder that healing and creativity go hand in hand and that we don't have to do it alone.
Yes, thank you very much. And to our listeners, remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. Just take one step, one page at a time.
If today's episode encouraged you, be sure to check out Deanne's website at deannewelsh.com for a free copy of her book, When God Calls a Writer, Moving Past Insecurity to Write with Confidence, and look for her private Unstoppable Writers group on Facebook. Deanne has also offered our listeners a mini guide as a gift. They're linked in the show notes.
Ooh, awesome.
Wow.
More free gifts.
Oh, weird.
I love it.
All right. I think we're done. This is a wrap. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. And this was just great.
Yeah, this is something I want to listen to over and over.
She's been talking about this on every podcast from the beginning. That's why I'm like, oh, we've got someone that helps people write.
It's good. Yeah. So this is a good podcast to do right now.
We want to help our listeners heal. And I think a lot of them would like to write. And do you know do you still work for Susan?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So that was-
I do her newsletter and her social media content.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
She doesn't do ours. Ours is getting a little bit better. I mean, I learned how to do the reels.
Thanks for tuning in to Hanging On to Hope. Check out our website, hangingontohope.org. There are resources on there, and if you would like to donate or volunteer, you can do that through our website. We are a brand new nonprofit, so we appreciate any and all support. And we thank you for listening, and until next time, keep hanging on to hope. We are evidence that there is hope and healing for you, and our passion is to help you find it too. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening, everyone.